Oh, I forgot my Google rant. I can't leave that out. So Gemini 2, I haven't used it yet. It looks really good. People are saying it's really good. It's got a much greater token limit. I think it can process theoretically like 2 million tokens than the current OpenAI models have. And I get it's just from what I'm hearing, people using it, it's really good. And then VO2 came out, which is OpenAI's, or not OpenAI's, Google's new video generator, and it blows the socks off of Sora. Now, I think the thing with Sora is the GPU resources to run Sora at its full capability are just immense. And they're kind of looking at it like, how do we make Sora profitable, or at least not too big of a loss leader? And so what they did is they gave us a turbo version of Sora that really isn't that impressive, to be honest. Now, when they first talked about Sora releasing this turbo version back then, it would have been everything that it was hyped up to be. But the other models that are coming out now, especially the ones from China, some of them being open source too, are just really, really good. And some of the lip syncing stuff that Runway ML and Pika Labs and stuff are doing really, really good. So Sora being that special, I mean, sometimes, people that use it a lot, again, are iterating a lot. And sometimes when you iterate, you just hit the right iteration where Sora does amazing things. But comparing Sora to VO2, the Google one that was just released, now, it was just released. It was released to partners, people on like an old Second Life term, the putrid inner core. Their partners have access to it. Jim Bob or me probably won't get access to it for quite some time, but we can hope. But anyway, it's really good. It's probably the best model out there, bar none. I've been using the image effects, or the Image Gen 3 text to picture model, which is also related to their VO2. I'm sure it's using the same technology. And it is, I'll say it's one of the best, if not the best, text to image models out there currently. And Google has done a smart thing. They've actually less woke it. It's like you can push it a little bit if you want to do edgier things. Like I played with it over the last, week, and I haven't, it only comes up every once in a while that it won't render an image that I ask it to. Now, I'm not pushing it to do crazy stuff or anything, but before, it's like it just wouldn't do anything. I think the worst at that, DALL-E 3, if you just took all the governors off, and it's got two settings. People don't realize this, and you see this through the API. It's got this vivid setting and a natural setting. And all the pictures you see mostly on the internet, it's always defaulted to this vivid setting. So the coloring is kind of all weird whenever you look at a DALL-E 3, unless you're doing like illustrations or art type styles. But if you take that off and put it to a more natural looking thing, it does amazing stuff too. And if you took the governor off of it that Microsoft put on, and I get why Microsoft did it. They don't want people doing crazy stuff. So they're defaulting on, I would say, just too strenuous. They need to loosen up just a little bit. But DALL-E 3 would be the best model. Now, with image generators, because they're trained on different data sets and have different techniques, there is no best, I would say. It depends on what your use case. And also notice that Image Gen 3, a lot of the stuff I'm doing looks a lot like the stuff that comes out of Flux. So I'm wondering if there's some kind of common ancestry there as far as the models go. But anyway, Image Gen 3 for most use cases, not all, like ideogram, which gets no love, is absolutely the best at prompt adherence. You put in a prompt, for the most part, better than any models currently. It'll give you what you want: text, positioning, all the elements that you include. Midjourney is probably the worst at that. Midjourney, I would say, though, from an absolutely artistic perspective, is still the best. But ImageGen, Flux, right up there with it, and both ImageGen and Flux handle prompt adherence better than the current versions of Midjourney. That might change, but the image or ideogram still is the best at prompt adherence, but the results, although fantastic, aren't quite as good as Imagen or Midjourney. They're competitive, but not quite as good, but still really good. So I tend to use, Imagen, or not Imagen. I've been playing with Imagen a lot. I like it. I use ideogram mostly for like album covers for my little music and stuff like that. But here's my rant against Google. Google owns YouTube, and I did one of these little, I did a live stream, and on it, I touched on some subjects, and even on the live stream, it's like I'm probably going to get banned from YouTube. And Google owns YouTube. Alphabet owns Google. Google owns YouTube, or Alphabet owns YouTube. One of them. Anyway, however that string matches. For lack of a better term, Google owns YouTube. And they gave me a warning. They said I have to take a little, because I mentioned this. I didn't even really go into it. I just side mentioned it a couple times. And they've got AI going through the transcripts, and it hit a flag. So it flagged the content and removed it. No big deal. It was a live stream. It was fun to do. I only had 10 people watch it, so big deal, But, it ticks me off. And, we see the political landscape changing, where now we're going to go back to more free speech and openness, I hope. And so questioning things, there's not going to be, I hope, this self-elected group of bureaucrats that are inserting themselves to make sure you don't get the wrong opinion according to them. In the United States, there's no ministry of truth. There's no centralized authority to just say what truth is and what truth isn't. And there's all these people worried about misinformation. You know what? If you're an expert and you got a good track record, people generally will respect your expertise and trust you. However, if you're a bad person and you have a bunch of expertise and you sell the credibility that those expertise should bring you to the highest bidder and give out an opinion on what the money is directing you rather than what truth is directing you, people will also understand that too, and they will just not care what your expertise are and won't trust you. And the powers that be are so focused on buying people with expertise to push opinions that they want versus where the truth goes, they're not getting it. So they're just going to say, well, you can't think for yourself anymore. We're going to give you what to think, and we're going to tell you how to think. If you break the rules, we'll just pull you off and not give you an opinion anymore. I hope that just gets nipped in the bud. But I could take this little training class. I might, but I might not. And I am also hedging my bets again. I'm going to start pushing these to Rumble because it's a little freer. I don't think it's totally free, and probably 100% free is no good because, again, there's still the running into a movie theater and yelling fire and people trampling themselves to get out of the theater and dying when there is no fire. There is a tiny limit to free speech, but it's got to be tiny. It's got to be not just people that are control freaks inserting themselves into society because they think they know what's best for everybody, and they're just going to be fascist and push it on everybody. And if you try to resist them, they'll just pull your voice. We don't want that. I don't want that. So if it starts becoming a pain on YouTube, screw them. I'll go somewhere else. And yeah, I'll lose a lot of the audience, but over time, people will get it and do the same thing. And, we can have YouTube and Google go into the dustbin. It's encouraging that they've loosened up a little bit with Imagen 2, or Imagen 3, excuse me. But YouTube hasn't loosened up at all. They're still on it, trying to control what people think. And so remember that. And it's a bummer because I like YouTube. It's the best platform out there, bar none, for sharing videos and stuff. But at the same time, if they're going to start treating me as a serf and that they know better and they've got some, all these automated AI routines that are programmed to view me as someone that's a threat to the whatever they're trying to build, then I'll just go somewhere else. And, oh well. I'll leave YouTube to the Mr. Beast and people talking about food and people talking about, and this is interesting because YouTube doesn't want you to not be a conservative or not be a libertarian or not be a liberal. What they want, and this is the same of what the control freaks want, is they want you to be labeled as such, but they want you to fit into a box that they make. And they shift the box where they want. So, labeling people is essentially useless. It's the content. And if you don't fit in that box, then you're out. And right now the box is pretty wide. Like, you can still get a lot of good content on YouTube, even political stuff. But if allowed to, they'll just shrink the box because that's the nature of when you start getting to be a control freak. You just get more and more wanting to control what people want to do. And so they'll try to shift that box around and make it smaller and smaller and smaller. And no. But anyway, I hope Google changes. The parent company, Alphabet, all the sub-companies, Google, YouTube, and all that, where they allow free discourse and let up on trying to be partnering with NewsGuard and government agencies and all that that have self-selected themselves to be the central control unit of what truth is, and instead rely on people to make decisions. I don't mind it when stuff is flagged in the sense that it pops up a little thing below saying, this topic touched on this. Here's a bunch of data on this topic. Click more. Because in some things, I'm pretty knowledgeable. So if it flags something, I can go, oh, that flag's a bunch of garbage and I don't need to worry about it. So the control freaks get to put their little saying in there, but we can totally ignore it. But when they just rip you down and say, no, people can't watch that because we can't have you infect the masses, that's, I said that I word, maybe that'll get me in trouble. That's just something we shouldn't tolerate as Americans. It's like if you want to do that in another country, that's fine. But if you're going to be a platform on America, I think the whole anti-discrimination laws should be adjusted to apply to your sovereignty as a person to be able to have your own opinion that's different from what the narratives are that the powers that be think is legit. And if we teach people how to think at schools rather than what to think, people will be able to logically go through things. If we quit trying to brainwash people all the time, brainwashing only gets you so far before people start going, traditional news is garbage and quit watching it. And the people that are still brainwashed are like, oh, you're going to the dark web to get news. Where if, the news was credible, because the percentage of people like that, they think the percentage of people like that are like this. Oh, I'm with the herd, and the herd says that these news sources are legit, so I'm going to stick with the herd. But what they don't realize is, A, that's stupid. You should do nothing for the herd. History has shown that the majorities and populations have been wrong numerous times, even though those convictions that are wrong have been deeply held by those societies, and they've gone to war over them. Recent examples in history come to mind, anyone? But they think because they're herd driven, and again, the powers that be will push this too. Like, if you want to be with the herd, this is what you got to believe. And you virtue signal to show everybody with your herd, and then good things come to you. But if you don't virtue signal or you step out of the lane that the herd travels in, boom, you're persona non grata, and we're going to start coming for you. But the thing is the herd isn't like this. The herd is like this now. Because people think for themselves, people see what's going on, and they break free. Because a lot of people aren't necessarily with the herd, or worrisome, but at least in the short-term good, they're with a different herd. I don't like herd mentality, but maybe we're getting some herd clashes where we've got the MAGA herd versus the liberal herd. Now, my herd tends to be more on the conservative side, Christian side, but we should all just think for ourselves. And where that puts you is no concern of yours, because you're trying to find the truth. You're looking at things. A lot of people in my family and stuff have criticized me because I've gotten little details wrong. One, there's the old saying, the frontiersman takes the arrows. So if I'm looking at stuff as it's emerging sometimes, and I've had to train myself to be a little bit more cautious about what I say when things come out, but I'm looking at places they don't even look. So I might get a few things wrong here or there, but I'm looking, and looking is important. They don't look. They think they look, but I don't even need to hear what their opinions are. I can just watch NPR and CNN. Hey, don't tell me. I'll just catch CNN or NPR or ABC, and then even Fox News now, and then I'll know what your opinion is, so you can just save your breath. Because you're not doing research, you're just regurgitating what you hear because you're lazy and because you want to be part of the herd. Because you have other things that are more important, and you've outsourced your critical thinking to experts that are abusing you because they're selling their expertise to get money, and then, but the truth is lost in that process. So that's one. Two, some of the things that I've said over the years have appeared to be false, but then later have come out to be true. And I'm waiting on a whole queue of those too. Plus, there's this concept of what I like to call fuzzy truth. Now, I believe in absolute truth. I believe there is an absolute truth, and everything else has fallen short of that. But sometimes it's the just of the truth. Like a prime example, this is a joke. But say this politician whose initials are HC, is Babylon B, pretending to be modern day fact checkers. The fact check is this person sacrificed 3 goats before this political event happened. And then the fact checkers come back and say, no, that's not true. And you go, oh, of course it's not true. But then you read what they say, why it's not true. Only 2 goats were sacrificed. That type of stuff happens all the time. Well, they'll declare something false because little details are off, but the just or the fuzziness, the vector of what was trying to be said, was actually on. And they're using the little details as a psyop to get you from traveling down that path because it's outside of the herd bounds. It just aggravates me. It really does. But one thing I'm starting to learn as I get older about politics and stuff, and yeah, I'm on a rant, and I need to bring it down a little bit. You cannot change people's opinions. So coming in and trying to change people's opinions is impossible. Why? Because one, a lot of their opinions are a foundation of a whole lot of parts of their personality. So if you prove that this part is wrong, all the little things that are built up on it will come collapsing down. And they don't want to deal with that. And probably I'm the same way. So they will fight to protect that pillar hard. So to go after a pillar of someone's ideology and try to break that when there's all these things that they've invested years in ideologically would all come crashing down. They're not going to do that. They're going to fight hard. Two, there is a spiritual element to some of the things because politics and spirituality and relationship to God, Jesus, and all that stuff is kind of all mixed together. And there's an element of blindness, spiritual blindness in there. So again, that's arrogant of me to say, oh, you're saying you're not spiritual blind. No, I'm as bad as anybody. I do believe that because I am a born-again Christian, I have the Holy Spirit. And if I will push myself out of the way, because myself is evil and wicked just like anybody else, but if I can do that and actually try to listen to what God is trying to tell me, either through His Word, through prayer, through other people, if I put myself aside, my ego, and just listen, I do think that sometimes that gives me discernment, or people who I do not believe that are saved, that have that connection with God, even though they think they might, they don't have that. And because I have it doesn't mean I use it nearly as often as I should, but it exists. 3, I'm curious. And curiosity, a lot of times you might, again, frontiersmen taking arrows, might lead you down paths that later aren't so good, but you're thinking, you're looking. I've met people in my lives who had wildly different political ideology than I do, but I look at them as kindred spirits because they're looking. To me, that's important. Now, in reality, is it really important? No, it's all vanity and ego. I think a lot of people, like I have friends that are totally apolitical, but at the same time, they're living great lives. They're living their best life now. Because nothing that's happening, as one person said, no brains, no headache. It's not like that because these people are very smart. But they just realize that they don't care. And it oftentimes doesn't affect them. And when it does affect them, all the angst up front wouldn't change whether something affects them or not. So I've gone from holding that kind of view in disrespect to coming around going, hey, maybe that's the right view, to just not worry about stuff. Let God handle things and try to focus on putting myself aside, listening to what God wants me to do every day. Now this has become kind of more of a Christian sermon, or heading that way, and that's fine. I do that. I'm a born-again Christian. I believe in Jesus. I believe he died for my sins. I believe he rose up on the third day. I believe by me believing in him, he takes my evilness and exchanges it for his righteousness. So when God looks at me, he sees Jesus' righteousness, not my own. Because if I'm a wicked dude, when I say I'm a wicked dude, a lot of Christians are full of self-righteousness. And when they say, oh, I'm so evil, it's because they stubbed their toe and said, drat. That's not the what kind of wickedness I'm talking about. And part of my New Year's resolution, just as a side note, is to actually try to walk more holy, to quit making excuses. Now, does that affect my salvation? No, but it affects my usefulness to God. It affects my usefulness to other people. It affects my joy, and I need a little bit more joy coming in lately because life has taken some bad turns for me over the last couple of years. Anyway, where was I going with all this rant? Google. So I hope Google, basically what I want to see in our society is over the last, I read this one paper once and it was talking about how in the early 20s or something, government was more concerned about record keeping than administrative task. And now government is more concerned about being the administrator, the boss. And we need to get back to it being a referee that's refereeing with a light touch, allowing a lot of flexibility to the states and local governments underneath it, doing the minimum that our society requests for it, and for them to understand that they're the referee and that we put them there to referee our activities. They're not the boss. The people are. Very important. A lot of societies are losing that. The European, everybody wants to be baby. Life's scary, and if you can get some form of comfort and stability underneath you, a lot of people will jump for that. I'd jump for it. But in the end, a lot of times it's abused. People come to you and say, we'll give you all this stuff, we'll give you a minimum income and all that. It's like with the debt. Government's just going crazy on the debt. Everybody's like, oh, Social Security and all this stuff is going to go away. It's not going to go away. You're going to still get your Social Security payments. But the thing is $1,500 is going to be what lunch cost. That's the threat we're facing, in my opinion. You still get your Social Security and stuff, but it just won't keep up with inflation. And I don't care who's in there, Elon Musk or whoever is in charge of Dodge, eliminating stuff. I'm hopeful they can get a lot of the garbage out of government. But it would take multiple administrations stacked on each other to clean up things. I'm kind of skeptical it's going to get there. And even then, we're like, $32 trillion in debt, and we're hemorrhaging another $1 trillion in 100 days. Let's say that gets much better and we're only hemorrhaging $1 trillion every 300 days. That's twice as good as current. That's huge. That is a momentous undertaking to get us to that point. Is that enough to save the current financial system in our country? I would argue no. So we need something better. What we really need, and this is what I hope AI brings to the table, is a massive increase in productivity and doing it in a way, and this is going to be tough, doing it in a way so it's not just the rich that have access to the massive GPUs and the frontier models that cost $1,500 a use. But societies in general can benefit from all the productivity, and we deregulate things a little bit so that we can get something like 10% GDP growth a year. That's how we're going to get out of debt. Going from hemorrhaging $1 trillion every 100 days to a 10% GDP growth, where we're growing faster than our debt. And part of that will obviously be shrinking the scope of the federal government, including the military. I'm very pro-military, but hey, if you can't afford it, you can't afford it. You can put it all on the credit card, you can afford it for today, but when you're going to need it 10, 15 years from now, the credit card's maxed out and you're not going to get it. So rather than be a paper tiger when it counts, let's have a military that we can afford, shrink its global commitments back more so that when the American people need it, we got it and it can be victorious. Rather than us paying trillions of dollars to have it scattered all over the world and support the global commons, by people basically take advantage of us and trade. And yeah, I'm going all over the place in this rant. I'll save that for later. I'm thinking about, if YouTube doesn't ban me, I might do it on Rumble, I might do it on X. I've done X stuff before, of doing or all three concurrently eventually. But I'm thinking about doing late night. I'll call it Enter the Colon rants. So if you're interested in that, again, I'll be nerfed somewhat why I'm still on YouTube, because they'll have to avoid certain topics or just hint at them. But hey, on X I can say what I want within reason. On Rumble I can say what I want within reason. So anyway, I'm gonna quit and I will see y'all later.